You're watching the She CEO podcast with Dr. Julie Ducharme, talking with female CEOs from all over the globe.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme back for another episode with She CEO. I am so glad you're here with us. And we have a new series that's happening with our 10,000 Women Rising campaign. If you haven't heard about 10,000 Women Rising, we just launched it last month. And we're very excited as we're focusing on reaching 10,000 women around the world by using education as a way to help uplevel women. With that, we have amazing experts from around the globe who are jumping in to help us, both men and women. I know normally I'm interviewing women CEOs, but I'm really excited today to have a fellow partner in crime here with the 10,000 Women who is joining us and be backing us. And what he does aligns so perfectly with what we do here at She Talks. So I'm really excited to have George Makrinos with us today. He is a writer and a producer with a passion for empowering people to share their stories with the world. His signature method, deep story work, has been the cornerstone of his success, enabling him to secure high-profile deals and collaborations in publishing and film. Some of his accomplishments include producing feature films with Academy Award winner Spike Lee, developing film adaptations with Academy Award winner Guillermo del Toro, and George's own book series producing a short film that launched its young female star into a lead role of the highest growing horror film of all time, and producing another short film co-financed by the Russo Brothers, the directors of the Avengers franchise, one of my favorite franchises. George, it's so great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really excited to have you here because oftentimes people think at Lead and Power She Talks that we don't want men involved in our group. And that's just the total opposite. I am a huge collaborator, and I think it's so important that we work hand in hand with our male counterparts and really help each other grow together and climb together. So when we met and got to spend time in Ohio, I felt like it was such a perfect collaboration with what you were doing. My vision is to give women a platform to tell their story across the world. And you have a vision to help people find their story. And so this is such just a perfect collaboration that we have here. And then with 10,000 Women Rising and, us seeing how do we take women to the next level by educating them. I think this just is an even better aspect for us to look at. So I'm so excited. Now I know a lot about you, but obviously our listeners and viewers don't. So I'd love for you to tell us some of your backstory of how did you get into this?
Yeah. So there's the actual creativity of projects that I'm doing, but then there's also helping people tell their stories at the sort of most elite level. So I'll talk about both a little bit. With respect to creating my own stories, I always wanted to be a filmmaker. I think that I traveled a more, let's call it, safe path in the beginning of my life, and even for the first few decades of my life, where I was studying architecture and doing real estate in New York City. But I didn't have the passion for that. And I felt like there was something missing in my life, and it was pursuing my dream. So for storytelling and filmmaking. So I decided to make the move. It was very scary. It's still very scary, but thankfully I've had some success along the way, which has made it a lot better. And so I decided to move into publishing to lock in stories that then I could adapt into movies. And that's just what I did. So it's been about a 20-year journey. And I'm happy to say that I'm actually adapting one of my book projects with the team that created Wicked right now. So I'm actually in the process of finalizing that negotiation and moving forward. So I'm excited to share that with everyone.
Wow, that is so exciting. And we know Wicked 2 just came out and got to see it. And it's been stuck in my head for like the last 2 weeks and been running around the house singing things like Popular and all that stuff. Of course, not as good as the actresses, but my family's been suffering through it. I love that band. And I think you hit on a really important point. And I had this in my career where I think we have so much synergy is I was working in another industry as well, which I was good at, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to do for the next 30 years of my life. And when I thought about leaving that industry as well to really chase after my passions, it was terrifying because there's no easy route. I think a lot of times people think, oh, if if I can just go viral, or, I can just make this money overnight. And, I always say there's no substitute for hard work and really building, a quality business, a quality life, if you will. And I mean, this as well. And I think you're in probably one of the toughest industries out there, when it comes to film and publishing as well. I mean, gosh, publishing alone has just shifted so much in the last 20 years, right? Like, everyone can make their own book now, right? But every book is not a good book. And so I think that's so interesting. Well, with the deep story work, which I think is really interesting, because when you started telling me about this really hit home for me. When I wrote my first like personal kind of book memoir, um, it was a very like healing yet challenging venture that I had no idea I was stepping into. And so it's like every chapter you're writing and you're kind of reliving some very difficult experiences. That was a really, it kind of caught me off guard when I was doing it. And so when you mentioned, what you're doing with deep story work, I'd love for our listeners to understand a little bit more about what does that mean when we want to do deep story work?
Yeah, so deep story work is something that I've been working about 20 years on, perfecting it um, and figuring out how to help others tell their stories. And so, if I had to define deep story work, I'd say that it's a storytelling framework that helps people uncover the deeper narrative that's driving their life, their leadership, and their mission.
Hmm.
And this is something that I've been lucky enough to work with a number of Academy Award winners over the last 20 years, like you said, and I've managed to take away and sort of understand what works with great story, what makes a great story, um, and 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 how can we do that for our missions as leaders, as artists, as and even just in our lives, as you mentioned, like story is something that is so integral in the human life. And so that seems to me to be a good enough life's mission. How do I understand story better? What makes a great story, and how do I help others tell great stories?
Hmm.
And it comes from this very long history working with some really great storytellers. So I like to think of deep story work as where psychology meets story.
Hmm.
So it's not just what happens to you, but what's happening within you.
Yeah.
And the goal is to help people move from telling their story to actually understanding it and living it with clarity, authenticity, and the most impact as possible.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I agree with you. I mean, I think that sometimes when we don't know our story, we don't understand our story, it can really affect our lives and the way that we're behaving and how we feel, and when you talk about, changing careers, and I changed careers, right? Like, that was part of my story, that I was like, what is my next story? What am I stepping into? Identity crisis is a big thing for athletes and other people, or even just someone changing industries after 30 years, right? Like, so I look at these things and I think this is no small feat, right? What we're doing is, She Talks is saying, hey, we're giving you a platform around the globe to tell your story. But when I look at what you're doing, I'm thinking, how many women know where to start, right? Where is their story? I mean, I look at my life and I think, well, I have a sports side, I have a business side, I have a family side, I have others, so what is my real story, right? Where do I start? And so I think that's really powerful. And let's talk a little bit about your challenge. I don't want to obviously give that away, but it's a great stepping stone into your programs. And obviously, we're running it for the 10,000 women rising that we're doing. And that's coming up in just, let's see, wait, December or January? You have to remind me. December? Yes. No?
I think mine is starting in 3 days, December
Oh my
13th.
gosh, it's
Yeah.
starting soon. Oh my gosh. So even faster than I
Yeah.
thought. See, this
Yeah.
is what happens when you're CEO. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes and your team's just on it. So, but let's talk about that, because you're going to be running that, I think, very often. And I know we already have some women signed up in that, but I remember you saying like this can get really intense. So can you fill us in a little bit on that without obviously giving away all of it?
Absolutely. So, what people will experience in the She Talks Deep Story Work challenge will be prompts that you'll get daily that are the answers to them are what I use to discover and chronicle great stories. So you won't really know sort of how the answers to each question fits into the story quite yet.
Mhm.
But at the end of the challenge, you'll see it all fall together. And along the
Mm,
way, we'll be explaining sort of why these things matter, why these prompts and your answers to the prompts matter. And I'll give you one example. You mentioned moving into another industry. And so that in deep story work, we call that moving into an unknown territory. So when you think of the one of the most popular stories of all time, The Wizard of Oz, that's the moment where Dorothy lands in Oz. So you going to this other land, this other business really is you going to Oz. And it's
mm,
like you'll meet your share of scary characters, you'll meet your
mm,
share of people that help you, you'll have all of these things that you need to contend with. And what deep story work demonstrates is that all of those elements are really externalizations of the transformation that's happening inside of you. And that's why we call it deep story work, because you'll see that these things are a part of the story of your life, but unless you integrate and understand them, you won't really well, let's say that the best thing to do is to integrate and understand these elements.
mm. Yeah. Now, for a lot of our women, they want to be public speakers. Do you feel that this is a really great path to building out not just their story, but the story that they would tell on stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one way of really understanding your story better. And so when you understand these elements of what makes a great story, and you see that your life has all these elements, and you're able to sort of instead of like not know where to start with telling your story, you'll have a really clear sense of, oh, here's the story, here's my
Mm,
story beats. That clarity works directly into your public speaking. And
mm,
as a matter of fact, the some of the programs that we have in deep story work is we write pitches for your story, and
mm,
we write movies for your story too. So why is that cool? Because a lot of very famous TED and TEDx speakers had movies made of their TED talks. And that's
mm,
sort of one thing that we've moved into in deep story work, is actually writing the story out. So we help people write their story out. One example of that, well, let me give you two examples actually. Diana Nyad gave a talk called Never Ever Give Up. I
mm,
think it was like 2013. That was made into a movie where
mm,
Annette Bening played Diana Nyad, and it got Oscar nominations and all that stuff. Another one would be like Temple Grandin's talk, The World Needs All Kinds of Minds.
mm,
Temple gave that talk, and then there's a movie called Temple Grandin where Claire
mm,
Danes won the Emmy, the Golden Globe, the Screen Actors Guild Award. So like once you understand your story really well, there are so many ways that you can
mm,
express that story, even to this, to the level of telling a movie that gets your story around the world and even awards and all that
mm.
stuff.
Yeah, that's powerful, and, you're saying that, and I was just hitting me as you're saying that, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I remember those," and I think sometimes people don't realize the power of what can come from their story, right? To think that a movie or a keynote or something like that could come, or even just a better understanding of yourself, which could shift the way that you live your life. It could shift what you go into, right? I always tell people that, leadership is important not just at work, but also in your home life. How you lead with your family and your friends is just as important, because oftentimes people think, oh, well, I'm not a leader at home. Yeah, you're absolutely a leader at home. You may be a leader with your friends. So I think this is so powerful. And I'm so excited that you are part of this because, like I said, this just marries so well with what we're doing. So for those of you thinking about doing this, the first thing you do is find your voice challenge, which is 5 days with Amanda. And then you move on to George's class, which is find your story, and is it 8 days? Do I have that
It
right?
did. Yes.
8 days. And I'm telling you, for those of you who might be thinking about this, It is so little time out of your schedule to do this, but it is so powerful with this. And so I'm really excited about this. So if you're thinking about doing this, you can obviously go to our website, leadandempowerher.com. It's coming up on the screen. But if you're driving or listening right now, we will put those links in all the posts. So don't worry about that. That will get you to 10,000 women, and that will get you to George. So I know some of you might be like, I'm just going to skip it all, Julie, and go straight to George. No, don't do that, because we have some really cool things we're doing, and we want you to do the progression because it makes a lot of sense. So the Find Your Voice is going to get you prepped for George's class. And then after that, it opens up a whole university of classes for you. So George has several different ones that he does after that he'll give you in his class. And then, of course, it opens up a page of a lot of classes we have. And our goal is to give you opportunities to learn in the areas of leadership, business growth, physical and mental health, and financial wealth. And our whole hope is that by educating you, it helps uplevel you in your life. And then in turn, you can uplevel someone else. And we're actually going to study this. We're going to come back results after 12 months to show you what happens with everything from people who take George's challenges and classes to all the others, of how it helps up-level your life. So if you're thinking about doing that, you can jump in on that. George is also going to be at our March 7th conference, speaking there, both keynote and also doing a workshop, which I'm very excited about. And so you can also catch him there along with myself and many of the other experts. And Josh is putting that up on the screen right now for you guys to see. And so that's going to be a great event, and you should really check it out. It's going to be like our midway celebration. And then at 12 months, we're going to have a massive party somewhere. I don't know where yet, but somewhere really fun and amazing. So, George, any last thoughts or anything you'd like to share before we head on out?
No, I'm just so excited to share. I'm so thankful to you and to She Talks for understanding the power of story, because I do believe that once people are able to have clarity on their story and their mission, it'll be such a powerful tool moving forward in their lives.
Yeah, and I hope to see so many She Talkers work with you and build their stories and create their films and just find all the different ways that they can get out there, because we have some women with some pretty amazing stories that I think could really make an impact with the world. So thank you so much for being on the show. As I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.
Thanks for watching the She CEO podcast. Don't forget to smash that bell icon, and don't forget to like and subscribe.